For over the past 40 years, if you were looking for a mid-size body-on-frame SUV that has the same off-road capabilities as your buddy's Jeep, but without the fear of it constantly breaking down, you were looking at a Toyota 4Runner. When the company introduced this nameplate to the States back in 1984, it became an instant hit and quickly gathered a loyal group of cult followers. Now for 2025, we are seeing an all-new 6th generation 4Runner, and this is a comprehensive redesign. We're talking about an all-new chassis, which includes a new frame, a new look on the outside, new powertrains under the hood, including a new electrified hybrid, and on the inside, we finally have a fully redesigned interior with the modern tech conveniences that buyers today expect. Now, as you can see this week, we are behind the wheel of one of the most off-road capable versions, known as the 4Runner TRD Pro in this new mud bath exterior color. And the big question I went and answered, has Toyota managed to make enough changes to the 4Runner to make this vehicle just as good, if not better, versus a Ford Bronco or a Jeep Wrangler? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the new exterior styling direction for this 6th generation 4Runner, let me go ahead and pop the hood and remind you guys what's powering this thing. Now, this is where a lot of enthusiasts for the 4Runner are going to be sad, because the old V6 has finally been replaced. In its place, however, is basically just a turbocharged 4-cylinder, but Toyota offers a choice between a non-hybrid and, of course, a hybrid version called an iForce Max powertrain. Now, as you can see underneath the hood, it is definitely not the prettiest looking engine bay. I'm actually surprised Toyota didn't want to put any kind of engine cover, but what you're going to find here is essentially the same engine that we've shown you guys in other Toyota and Lexus products. However, in their trucks, the engine has been shifted to be mounted longitudinally. As you can see, it's the company's 2.4-liter gasoline direct and port injection turbocharged 4-cylinder. This engine is also assisted electrically by a 36 kilowatt electric motor, essentially offering 48 horsepower. It's sandwiched between the 4-cylinder and the 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, the engine on its own delivers 278 horsepower and 317 foot-pounds of torque. Add in the electric motor, which adds another 48 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque. You're looking at a total of 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. Again, this makes this the most powerful production 4Runner that Toyota has ever offered. Like I said earlier, 8-speed automatic transmission, and Toyota offers a choice between either two-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, or two different four-wheel drives, a part-time system like this TRD Pro, or a full-time four-wheel drive system similar to the one in the Land Cruiser that's standard on the limited and the platinum grade trim levels. Now, fuel economy is also an area where Toyota has significantly improved that compared to the old V6. This powertrain is rated at 23 in the city, 24 on the highway, 23 combined. That compares very nicely to the old model of 1619. This is rated to run on regular gas. Toyota did shrink the fuel tank capacity to 19 gallons, about 4 gallons smaller than the old model, but with the improved efficiency, you should do around 400 miles of range on a full tank. Now, Toyota doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We got 7.2 seconds in a Tacoma TRD Pro a few months ago, or last year basically, so I imagine this car should be similar. Top speed should be around 115 to 120-ish miles. The towing capacity of this model has improved to 6,000 pounds. However, this model is rated at 5,800 pounds, and that's because this is also among the heaviest 4Runners ever, weighing in at just over 5,500 pounds, a whopping 700 pounds heavier versus the previous generation that I tested about a little over a year ago. Now, of course, there is a non-hybrid version as well, but you cannot get it if you guys want a TRD Pro or a Trail Hunter trim. You'll have to step down to like a TRD Off-Road, where Toyota essentially charges like an extra $5,000 more for the hybrid powertrain. So it's really a choice if you guys feel that the added power is going to be worth it. Really, the hybrid only improves the efficiency by about 2 mpg, so it's really more like an increase in the power versus an increase in the efficiency. But closing up the hood, which as you guys saw, it's held up by a prop rod, the engine's gonna shut off, which is kind of interesting. Anytime I open up the hood of these new iForce or hybrid Toyotas, the engine will turn on, but then when you close the hood, the engine will shut back off, because remember, this is a full hybrid. It has a 1.87 kilowatt hour nickel metal hydride battery pack, so it can run on electric electric power alone. But let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling, because I have to say, this is where Toyota, for me, knocked it out of the park. I mean, you have its own unique styling here, which is also kind of similar to the new Tacoma, but Toyota has done some, good job differentiating. Now, first of all, the hood, you can see it's got an actual hood scoop there, although I'm not entirely sure if it's a functional hood scoop. I see that it kind of goes through a little bit there, but I'm not entirely sure if it's providing actual air. I don't feel any heat or anything, so I think it's just for looks. The hood itself has lots of bulges and creases, which gives it a muscular appearance to it. However, it does block your view a little bit when you're driving the car from the driver's seat. I love the new grille, of course, with the heritage style Toyota logo that's spelled out boldly. This particular color, like I said, is called Mud Bath. It's a new color this year, and it certainly looks good with all of the styling cues of the TRD Pro. You have these upgraded full LED headlights, which have the Pro badging there, which actually illuminates along with LED low and high beams, LED daytime running lights, and turn signals. You also have LED fog lights by Rigid Industries here, which look great with the 4 individual LEDs. There's also an LED off-road light bar in the center that only comes on when you guys have the high beams on. It's designed for off-road use only. And you can really see the TRD Pros are actually around 2 inches wider. Same thing with the Trail Hunter versus a non-TRD Pro or Trail Hunter, and that gives this thing a really beefy appearance to it. It looks really aggressive and mean, and now that the sun's come out, you can really see the metallic fleck in the actual paint. I wasn't expecting this mud bath color to have a metallic sparkle to it. I don't typically love brown, but it really looks good on this car, especially when it's all shined up. Now underneath here, you can see the TRDs come with a stamped, very thick steel skid plate underneath a bash plate, along with my test car having the upgraded red painted recovery front tow hooks with this vehicle, which looks great. I love how there's no aerodynamic extender there that you find on other trims. This area here is plastic, unfortunately, but you can see the beefy tires, and you get around 10.1 inches of ground clearance with this trim. Same thing with the Trail Hunter. So it has a solid 1.5 inch suspension lift compared to a limited trim, and around 1 inch more ground clearance compared to a TRD off-road version of the 4Runner. Now moving around the side profile, this is their mid-size SUV, but it also shares the space with the new Land Cruiser, although there are some key differences. They both ride on the same 112.2-inch wheelbase. It's around 2.5 inches longer than the previous generation 4Runner, but at 194.9 inches long, this is nearly 5 inches longer. It's actually around 4 inches longer than the old TRD Pro 4Runner, but it's also around 1.5 inches shorter than the Land Cruiser. Its overall height with that ARB roof rack is around 75.5, so this vehicle is about 1/2 inch lower than the old than the new Land Cruiser, but it's also around 3 inches taller versus the old 4Runner, so there's a key difference there. The fender flares you can see on the TRD Pro, they are gloss black painted, which I don't like how they're gloss black painted, because right now the truck looks amazing. It's new, there's no scratches, but this is going to collect a lot of scratches. I would probably put some kind of like plastic clear bra over there to protect the fenders from getting scratched up. It does contrast nicely with the mud bath paint, but I really wish Toyota would offer a full paint finish, or at least make them unpainted to make them more durable. It just seems like a silly, decision for a TRD Pro to have gloss black painted fender flares. Now the wheels, these are essentially the same 18-inch wheels that we've seen on the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. They're on a 33-inch tall Toyo Open Country all-terrain tire, which means 33-inch tall. It's a 265/70 R18. The brakes have also been upgraded. They are 13.4-inch rotors at the front, 13.2 at the rear. There are a larger and wider vented or slotted rotor, which allows for more heat dissipation. You have a fixed 4-piston caliper, of course. I would have liked to see Toyota put some actual high-performance brakes on this car, but what you do get, of course, are the high-performance suspension upgrades. Those are the Fox Racing shocks with the remote reservoirs. It gives you that inch of suspension lift, of course, and they also allow for this vehicle to withstand a couple of jumps, not our minor ones. I've had a chance to drive that on the press drives, and this vehicle handles it really well. You can see there's a TRD Pro badge there, of course, along with gloss black painted mirrors, which I believe are power folding. You have 360 camera throughout the vehicle, along with their Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, I believe. Integrated turn signals, and then you can see just a standard sunroof on this trim. Toyota sadly doesn't offer a pano roof on the 4Runner. This is an accessory, the ARB roof rack, basically. which is an extra $1,700. It looks really good, a little bit pricey, but if you guys want to put some actual stuff up there or a roof tent, you're going to want that. This window, as you can see, takes a little homage to the, I believe, the second generation 4Runner, has how it goes almost to the roof of the vehicle, which looks pretty nice, but it's also still instantly recognizable as a 4Runner. As I back away, I just love the styling of this vehicle. Toyota really knocked it out of the park. I love the proportions of the car. It's not too big, but it's just well suited for the look of the vehicle. The taillight design looks pretty much like an evolution of the previous generation, but it's definitely been modernized. I love the kind of smoked look that you get with this trim. There's an LED turn signal and brake light and reverse light, of course. I wish the turn signal, however, was amber. That's kind of like a personal preference. And just like the previous model, you have this little bar here that spells out Toyota that's black as opposed to body colored. TRD Pro is stamped into the tailgate along with their new Beyond Zero badge that says iForce Max to let everybody know this is a hybrid, of course. Looking at the tow hitch, you can see the tow hitch looks pretty beefy. It's directed bolt directly to the frame. And then you have a single exhaust that kind of tucks down out of the way. And then, of course, being a Pro, this actually has a full-size matching spare with a matching alloy. And then my test car also has that little accessory there for 500 bucks. That's their skid plate for the rear diff, which is certainly going to be necessary if you guys plan to do some serious off-roading. Now, just like the previous generation, this window rolls down electrically, which I love. You can also do it back here from these little buttons. However, I will point out when the rear window is rolled down, the power liftgate stops working, which is technically a new feature. I'm not sure why Toyota does that, but it's something that I noticed in my week's worth of testing. I love the rear spoiler, which is also black painted. It looks a little bit more pronounced this year. And then the rear bumper, you can see, has some black and body colored accents to it with some integrated parking sensors front and rear. Now, the cargo area, you can see power liftgate is finally included on the new 4Runner, and this is where Toyota had to take away some of the space because they had to make room for that 1.87 kilowatt nickel metal hydride battery pack. Now, the floor compared to a non-hybrid is raised up about 6 inches, which the cargo area is still very, very, very usable. There's also a nice little underfloor storage area here that Toyota gave you because the battery pack is a little bit further ahead of that, but you can put a lot of accessories there. You can hide some things, which is pretty nice. You also have a 120 volt power outlet here along with some upgraded LED lighting that my test car has, which is like an extra 200 bucks. And you also have some tailgate lighting in here that actually points down to light up the area if you're back here. But with the back seats up, remember, the battery pack eats up into the space. You have 42.6 cubic feet of cargo space, which is certainly still very usable. However, if you want to fold down the seats, which you can't do from back here, I really wish Toyota would give us a release handle. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention my test car also has for an extra 17 or 1,500 bucks an ARB onboard air compressor, which you can see once you have the hose there, you can basically use that to fill up the bikes, your bikes with air, the tires here with air. You can see there's also USBs there along with the 12 volt. That's a really nice accessory, a little bit pricey, but you can see this right here is actually remnants of a third row because you can get a third row on the Limited and SR5 trims, but not on this TRD Pro. But getting into the back seat to fold them down, you actually have to do them from back here, as you can see, and you pull that, you can see the seat will kind of flip forward and then creates like this big dip right here. Now there is another additional underfloor storage area there, which is also very usable, but for maximum cargo, I think you actually have to leave the seat down, which, as you can see, once you do that, there is a noticeable hump there. So I really hate how it's not a flat floor. I almost wish Toyota would have raised this up even more to kind of make it flush with that. But when you fold down everything, Toyota says you get a maximum of 82.6 cubic feet of storage space. That's pretty much the same as the Land Cruiser, although the Land Cruiser has a little bit more cargo, like 3 more cubic feet when the rear seats are in their up position. Compared to the last gen 4Runner, it offered up to 90 cubic feet of space, so the hybrid does eat into the space a little bit, but if you go for a non-hybrid, it does offer that max of around 90 cubic feet. Now moving on to the interior of the all-new 6th generation 4Runner. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is Toyota's latest intelligent access key with, of course, a 4Runner badge on the back of the key to let you know you drive a 4Runner. It's got the usual buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, finally on a 4Runner, and for the panic function, Toyota also offers their digital key functionality. That's actually an extra a la carte option charge for 275 bucks. If you guys are an owner, you can use your smartphone as a key along with having access to the Toyota Connected Service services app. Now you can see door handle. It's a traditional pull style with these black painted door handles. If I touch that area, you can see that will lock the doors. It'll also power fold the mirrors. Very, very nice upscale touch. If I want to open the doors, there's a sensor on the back that will unlock the door. This vehicle does not have an auto walkaway lock or unlock feature like some competitors. Now looking at the interior on the TRD Pro, I hope you guys like a black interior because this is your only color option if you want the mud bath color. Toyota does offer like a cockpit red, but not on the mud bath color. I actually kind of wish they would offer like a brown interior with this exterior color, which I think would look great with the brown on the outside as well. But you can see the soft text, which is kind of unique a little bit on the TRD Pros, has this almost like camo appearance in the actual insert of the seat. It also has some contrast red stitching. I miss the fact that there used to be our TRD badge embroidered into the head restraint. I kind of wish they still did that. But the seats themselves, they look a lot more aggressively bolstered. They're also very comfortable, well padded as well. I sat in this vehicle for like an hour road trip and it was really comfortable. You have a 12-way power adjustable driver's seat, which is nice. It includes a 2-person memory. The passenger side has an 8-way power adjustment, which is also a nice touch. You can see the door panel materials has the really nice soft plush soft text on this upper portion where you'd rest your elbows. It is hard touch plastic here, but you're not really going to touch that. It has a high quality grading material. I would have liked to see the door handles in like a brushed aluminum look, but they're plastic. They're at least large, so they're easy to grab. You can see there's also more leather over here, and here there's a TRD Pro badge here, along with some synthetic or synthesized carbon fiber trim. There's also additional storage here and storage down here. It's all hard touch plastic. And then my test car also has the upgraded JBL sound system, which sounds pretty decent. Could use a little bit more bass, but it is nice that it's standard on this trim along with this additional storage. There's also this little handy little removable area where this is actually a flashlight that the car comes with. It's part of an accessory. It's a really nice little touch, and you can also see that there is like a little bit of hidden storage in here if you guys don't have the flashlight accessory, but that's kind of a little neat thing there, and a little neat party trick that you can kind of show off to your friends, but you can also use it out on the trails, I believe, which would be good. You also have these alloy sport pedals on this trim, and in general, the interior makes a pretty good first impression. Now, getting inside, the one thing I'm noticing my test car is missing is no running boards or any kind of step rails, and there's also no grab handle here, so to get in, with its 10 inches of ground clearance, I have to kind of hoist myself up and hold onto the steering wheel. Once you're in, you have that nice commanding view of the road. As I shut the door, the door has a nice solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on their new TNGA F body on frame architecture. Now, with the TRD Pros, you get a red start stop button. So once you push that to fire up the engine, you can see the engine just fires up with a kind of like a hybrid-like startup. There's no traditional starter here, but it just kind of whirs to life. You hear the 4-cylinder come to life as well. Definitely not the same as the old V6, but at the same time, it has a nice guttural, deep tone to it, which I believe some of it is synthesized. Now, as you can see, in terms of the infotainment display, the upper trims like this will have their big 14-inch display. You have a fully digital 12.3-inch cluster here, which is slightly customizable. The steering wheel is unique to the TRD Pro in the sense that you have the TRD badging over here, of course. No paddles behind the wheel. Actually, I'm surprised it doesn't have paddles, but lots of controls here for your audio, for your cruise control with the Toyota Safety Sense system. And then you also have a power tilt telescoping wheel, which as you can see is a really nice touch considering the price point of this vehicle. What the car is lacking, however, is a heads-up display. I believe you can get that in the Land Cruiser, so that's one feature that Toyota doesn't offer here on this TRD Pro 4Runner. And you can see dashboard materials are hard touch plastic on this upper portion, but it has the same high quality grading as the door panel material. This speaker, as you can see, also pops out if you want to use it as like a little camping speaker where you want to take your music on the go with you, which is really cool. There's a little storage shelf here along with more of that faux carbon fiber trim with the big Toyota badging there that's also red outlined, but looks good. I've shown you guys the infotainment system before. This is their Toyota Connected Services system. There's technically a new version of this app or this software in the new RAV4, which I haven't had a chance to play around with, but this is still pretty good. It has over-the-air updates, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the screen is large with these little buttons over here for accessing the native system. Which is definitely nice. The engine, as you can see, shut off, so it'll just say ready in the instrument cluster to let you know it's still ready to drive. You have traditional air vents, of course, with a big volume knob, big dials, of course, to adjust your climate control. There's dual zone. You have a heated steering wheel, one level heated steering wheel, along with your heated and cooled seats, which is standard on this trim. Down here you can see there's a wireless phone charging pad. There's actually room for two, but Toyota only gives you one, along with two quick charging 45-watt USBs. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full 360 camera, which includes trajectory, really high quality graphics and resolution. It also has automatic cross traffic braking. And being that this is the off-road model, you also have multiple views where you can actually turn on a special off-road camera view, of course, which is going to be necessary when you're really off-roading, along with your full 360 perimeter scan view, which is also really impressive. This is definitely much better versus Toyota's previous systems. It's unique, of course, to this off-road model. So really love the fact that Toyota is kind of sweating the details there and making this, camera very, very usable, especially when you're off-roading. So that's always a plus. That's also a really great feature to have when you're parking. Now, looking at the rest of the console, you can see big grab handle here for the passenger. There's a traditional gear lever for the 8-speed auto. It includes a manual and sport mode here as well. And then you can see a few other buttons. This is your drive mode selector. If you have that highlighted, it'll show you 3 modes: sport, normal, and eco. If I want, I can also switch to the multi-terrain select, but you have to be in 4-wheel drive low to access that. There's also a tow haul mode along with a downhill assist and crawl control there. If I want to switch the drive mode into 4-wheel drive, I basically push that. It'll go into 4 high, of course. That'll engage the 4-wheel drive system via the clutch. And then if I want, I can go into the multi-terrain select here to go to an auto, a sand, a mud, a deep snow mode. So this is only accessed in 4-wheel drive. You can also access the 360 camera here, which gives you that perimeter scan. I find that to be a little bit useless. There's also a rear diff lock along with a sway bar disconnecting system there. So that's all unique, of course, to this trim. Most people, however, you need to drive it in 2 high because Toyota does not recommend driving it in 4 high all the time when you're actually not off-roading. You'll feel it kind of bucking a little bit as you drive. The limited and platinum trims have a full-time 4-wheel drive system. I really wish Toyota would just offer an automatic mode, but I think they don't because this is better for longevity. It's a little bit less complex versus having an automatic system. At least that's Toyota's reason. You can see decent cup holders here, nice padded center console. Open that up, you can see it's relatively large. Not the deepest center console area, but it certainly is very usable, and I like how soft that is. I mentioned earlier, the seats are also really comfortable and supportive. They hold you in place nicely. The heat and cooled function works well, and you can see the glove box is pretty big. It goes into the dash, but it offers a little bit more covered storage space, which is great. You have a digital camera rearview mirror on this trim as well, which is definitely a plus. And if you guys want to lower up the rear window, you can just do that by pushing that button. You can see that automatically rolls the window down. I love how Toyota preserved that feature on this trim. You have a woven material for the headliner, although actually it's more like hairy cardboard. This is a cheaper material. You have LED map lighting in here, not much in terms of LED ambient lighting. There's a reason why Toyota wants you to buy a Lexus GX instead. And then you have a standard sunroof here, which has a shade. It opens and tilts, of course, so nothing super fancy there, no pano sunroof. So overall, the interior is pretty identical to the last Tacoma TRD Pro, but I'm noticing the material quality feels better. There's not a single squeak and rattle. It feels much better put together. Remember, these cars are built in Japan. And paired with the comfortable seats, this is a really easy interior to live with. You just have to deal with the visibility from that hood bulge that kind of gets in the way, but once you get past that, it's still a pretty easy car to drive. Now, getting into the backseat area, let's go ahead and show you guys what that space is like. Now, with the increase in the wheelbase, Toyota was able to increase the legroom. You now have just under 35 inches of legroom, which is almost 2 inches more than the old 4Runner, which is a plus. It's still not the most roomy. The Land Cruiser offers around 1 inch more legroom than the new 4Runner, so kind of keep that in mind. Material quality back here is the same. Plush Softex on this upper portion, leather, of course, more of the Softex here. Nice cup holder area, grab handle, of course, a little bit more storage, hard touch plastic down here. And then these seats, like I showed you earlier, they can essentially fold down and then flip out of the way, but again, it creates a dip here. There is like access to a storage cubby there, which is definitely nice. And then if you want, you can put the seat back and you can also recline it. These don't slide forward and back. There is a grab handle here to help shorter people like myself hop in. But once you're in here, you can see, let me adjust this seat back down and shut the door. The space back here is pretty usable. This is about where my driving position is going to be. I have good foot space. There is a hump here for the center passenger for that drive shaft, of course. You have rear seat air vents, 2 USB-C charging ports, and you also have a power outlet there as well, which is nice. I can easily get back here and cross my legs, although again, it's not as roomy as like a Highlander, for example, so kind of keep that in mind. The storage cubbies, you have 2 in the actual seat backs, of course. They're The vehicle is wide enough to where you could fit 3 across, although it's not the best. You do have an armrest here that folds down, that gives you 2 cup holders. Then you can see the headroom space. I have a solid maybe 2 inches. The sunroof takes up space over here, but there's a nice little cutout, of course, to give you a little bit more headroom space. So overall, the back seat, while it's not the most spacious, it is better than the old model. Just keep in mind the Land Cruiser, which is in the same category, offers about 1 inch more legroom and a little bit more headroom versus the 4Runner. All right, so the day has finally come. We are back behind the wheel. However, this time for a full week with the all-new, fully redesigned 6th generation Toyota 4Runner. I have been waiting for this for a while. I've always had a special place in my heart for any generation of 4Runner. And this all-new model has been long overdue. I mean, we waited 14 years. Almost 15 years really for Toyota to finally give us an all-new version of this car. So we're basically driving the ultimate version of the 4Runner. I mean, this and the Trail Hunter are the two, off-road kings within the 4Runner lineup. They all come with the iForce Max powertrain if you guys want the Trail Hunter or the TRD Pro or the Platinum, which means we have the company's latest 2.4 liter turbo 4 with a 36 kilowatt electric motor sandwiched between the engine and the 8-speed automatic transmission. 326 horsepower, 465 torque, same powertrain as the Land Cruiser and the last Tacoma TRD Pro, which we got between 7.2 to 7.7 seconds 0 to 60 in those vehicles. So let's go ahead and see what we can get on our usual stretch of road here in the 4Runner. Remember, the vehicles are identically powered and similarly weighed. We have it in sport mode in the transmission and in the drive mode selector, and we're just gonna floor it. Nice sound. 7.16 there, so that's actually a little bit faster than the last Tacoma TRD Pro that I tested, and also significantly faster versus the Land Cruiser that I last tested a couple months ago, which is kind of confusing to me because the two vehicles weigh pretty similarly and they have similar power outputs. But for some reason, this 4Runner just feels peppier than the other two vehicles that I've most recently tested. Remember, this is still a 5,500 pound vehicle, so even though we have the most powerful powertrain that Toyota's ever put in a 4Runner, it has a lot of weight to lug around. But what I like about this powertrain, unlike the old V6, is there's plenty of torque everywhere. The old V6 required you to rev it so hard to make any power, and it also had an antiquated 5-speed auto, which was just really, really widely spaced, which made the acceleration suffer a little bit. Let's try another run here. This time it's more slightly uphill. Actually, let's try brake torquing and see if it makes a difference. Love that 1 to 2 shift. Sounds good when it shifts too. 7.7 seconds there. That's with it more going slightly uphill. So brake torquing, it really doesn't do anything. But what I notice is this car has plenty of traction. Even though the TRD Pros come standard with a part-time 4-wheel drive system, and you also have a locking rear diff, you have a stabilizer bar disconnect feature, it actually puts the power down well in dry conditions. So even though I'm still annoyed at the fact that Toyota doesn't offer a full-time system on, the off-roady trims, you can only get it in the limited and the platinum grade, which it comes standard on the Land Cruiser, their full-time system. The 2-wheel drive mode, when it's in rear drive mode, actually does a pretty good job of just putting the power down. Now, the thing about the 4Runner is even though this is a comprehensive redesign, we're talking about a new frame, much stiffer and stronger, this is still a body-on-frame vehicle with a live axle in the back. Now, the TRD Pros come with their latest Fox racing shocks that you basically get with the remote reservoirs. They're the Q3 system. It's the same shocks that we've seen in the Tacoma TRD Pro, but they're also a little bit different because this car is built in Japan. It's tuned a little bit differently. You have less weight, less mass to push around. The 4Runner never lets you forget it's a body-on-frame vehicle. The steering is pretty loosey-goosey, and the body is also really softly sprung. So TRD Pro does not mean it's a TRD like sporty vehicle. There's a TRD Sport trim, which we'll try to do a separate review on that if we ever get one for a full week. But the 4Runner in general just feels heavy, it feels cumbersome, it feels like a truck, which actually it feels more like a truck than the last Land Cruiser that I tested, and that's kind of where I almost think Toyota has their identities flip-flopped. I almost want the Land Cruiser to feel more trucky like this, the 4Runner to feel more refined. Now granted, this is a much more refined vehicle than the old 4Runner. It finally feels modern, it feels a lot more sophisticated, but it never lets you forget about its truck-based heritage, and that's kind of, the whole point of a 4Runner is there's a lot of loyal buyers in the 4Runner demographic, and they would not like it if Toyota made this thing a unibody, which I'm glad they didn't, but you can very much feel that this is in the same ballpark of something like a Jeep Wrangler or a Ford Bronco. At the same time, the 4Runner feels a little bit more livable than that vehicle, but you know, there's also the Land Cruiser. There's that interesting, you know, mix there where Toyota is double dipping in the midsize, you know, off-roady SUV space, which I guess isn't too bad. I like how they offer the choice. There's a lot of, it's good to have different choices per se, but I will say that there's a noticeable shake when you hit a bump in this vehicle. The big tires, obviously the 18-inch wheels on the 33-inch tall Toyo all-terrain tires do a great job where you can literally hit whatever pothole you want. It won't, you know, upset the car too much. You don't have to worry about damaging a rim because the tires are so big, but there's a noticeable shake that you get in the ride quality. It's a little jittery, and Toyota, I think, could have done a better job there, because I think the last Bronco that I tested rode better than this car. The Land Cruiser also doesn't really ride all that much better either. But I will say that the Fox shocks, I think, they're a much better job at just controlling the ride of this vehicle a little bit more. And then when you put your foot down, there's just plenty of power and torque everywhere, especially when you want that electric motor assistance. The electric motor on its own only delivers around 48 horsepower, so it's not a lot of power, but the car will, when you're on the brakes, when you're slowing down, it will actually switch over to an EV mode where it'll turn off the engine, and it can not accelerate really, but just coast in electric power alone. As soon as your foot touches the throttle, it wakes the gas engine up immediately. So it's not even as good as their other hybrid system that you'll find in like a RAV4, for example, a Camry, their car-based systems like a Crown Signia. This is very much, iForce Max is really just there to be like Turbo Max. It's basically just assisting the gas engine all the time, and just giving you extra torque. It's filling in the gaps where you have a little bit of the turbo lag, although this engine in general is surprisingly smooth, and it has a very guttural tone to it. So yeah, those of you who are missing the V6, and I know there's a lot of you out there, once you drive this, you're not going to be missing the V6. It just has much more, you know, appropriate daily drivability, where there's so much torque. It's a smooth engine, it sounds decent, and it's paired up with a transmission that is very much well partnered to this powertrain. So in day-to-day driving, you're not gonna miss the V6. This is much better, much improved. And I think Toyota has nailed it in the powertrain department. I'm just not entirely sold on the hybrid part. The hybrid part is where, you know, yes, it is nice when if you drive in a lot of stop and go traffic, the engine will shut off and you can basically just lift your foot off the brake and it'll coast along with electric power alone. So that in general could save you some MPGs, but on the highway, most of the times this is probably going to get worse gas mileage than the non-hybrid version of this powertrain, because remember, the hybrid adds roughly 600 to 700 pounds of additional weight, and that's going to affect the fuel efficiency, and it also affects the acceleration. But talking about the fuel efficiency, this is where I'm a little bit disappointed, because while my test car is only at around 500 miles of, you know, on the odometer, so it's still very much breaking in, I've only been averaging around 16 mpg in my week's worth of testing. Now, I even managed to do an a highway run when I had it in eco mode. I was driving very, very conservatively, and the best that it was able to do was like around 17, 18 mpg. This is supposed to get 23, 24 mpg, 23 combined. So, you know, maybe I'll get another one at some point that's more broken in. I mean, I'm happy that this is not a pre-production car, this is a full production car, but I'm not really too happy with the 16 mpg, especially when you combine it with its 19-gallon fuel tank. Only around 280-ish miles of range is what you're able to achieve, which is not good. Now, again, if you could get the 23 mpg, this could theoretically do closer to 400 miles on a full tank. It does technically have a slightly bigger gas tank than the Land Cruiser by about a gallon. So that's a plus, but still, I kind of wish Toyota would have put a bigger, like 23-gallon fuel tank on this vehicle. I imagine the hybrid componentry is eating into that space. Although even if you guys get the non-hybrid, it still only has a 19-gallon fuel tank. So the new 4Runner got a smaller fuel tank than the old one. And right now, as you can see, I'm taking advantage of the hybrid part. The engine has shut off. I'm going 32 miles an hour, and it's still coasting along in pure electric mode. So that's a nice touch. But as soon as I touch my foot on the throttle, the gas engine wakes up, because it just doesn't have enough power or enough battery capacity to actually power the vehicle alone on pure hybrid power or on pure electricity. So kind of keep that in mind. So overall, the 4Runner never lets you forget it's a body on frame vehicle. At least the chassis feels solid. There's not a single squeak and rattle. It's just the ride quality is a little shaky, a little bumpy, but if you're used to the old 4Runner, this is going to feel pretty similar. It's relatively quiet as well, although you do hear some wind noise from that ARB roof rack of course, that my test car has. And then of course you hear the guttural noise from the engine, which is partly synthesized as well. But the seats are a lot more comfortable. The driver assistance tech is a lot better. The tech is also impressive. I love the massive 14-inch screen, which is technically bigger than the Land Cruiser, which again, kind of begs the question, which one would you rather have, the 4Runner or the Land Cruiser? Because at the top end, the two vehicles are honestly pretty similarly priced. So in the past, the Toyota 4Runner has always been one of Toyota's consistently top-selling SUVs, with sales approaching 100 to 150,000 units every year. Last year in America in 2024, Toyota only managed to do around 94,000 units, but I suspect that's because around 30,000 people bought a Land Cruiser instead while they were essentially waiting for the all-new 6th generation to come out. So after finally spending a full week with this car, remember the 4Runner just went on sale essentially in December of 2024. There is a lot to like about this vehicle. The 4Runner has always had a special place in my heart, and I have to say this new version was definitely worth the wait. This is a comprehensive redesign, and you can feel it from the start. It's an all-new frame, all-new look on the outside, all-new powertrains, brand new technology, and a much more refined and comfortable vehicle, especially if you guys are coming from the old model. I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on the iForce Max powertrain. I mentioned earlier there was a $5,000 price delta between the gas and the hybrid. That's actually wrong. It's actually $2,000 extra, but it seems like on paper Toyota wants to charge you 12 grand, and that's because the iForce powertrain starts at the TRD off-road trim, whereas in the base the base turbo engine, you can get this vehicle as an SR5, which helps to reduce the price because the starting price is around $40,770 for the new 4Runner. The driving dynamics you guys saw 0 to 60 around 7.1 seconds is perfectly good. It's around a half a second faster versus the last 2024 TRD Pro 4Runner that I tested, and it's also around the same speed as the Tacoma TRD Pro, but it's also faster than the new Land Cruiser, which is kind of confusing to me because the two vehicles weigh about the same and have the same powertrain. I wish Toyota would have done something to make the ride quality better. Now, if you guys are used to a body-on-frame SUV, it's going to ride perfectly fine, but again, it is a shaky, kind of jittery experience, but the platform at least feels very sturdy. Because remember, these vehicles continue to be built in Japan, and there's just a certain level of quality and solidity that I feel from a vehicle from Toyota that is just, again, built from Japan and imported here. The back seat's a little bit larger, but it's still not the roomiest. The interior quality also feels surprisingly good. It feels less cheap than the Tacoma, the last Tacoma that I tested, which is weird to me because they have identical interiors. Again, the cargo area, while it is compromised a little bit by the battery pack, it's still very usable. It's only a pain in the butt if you guys don't feel like lifting up stuff extra high because of the increase in the load floor height from the battery pack. And I still hate the fact how it doesn't have a completely flat load floor area, which isn't good if you guys want to put a bed back there. That's kind of a huge downfall that makes you want to consider just going for the non-hybrid versions of this vehicle. But if you can ignore all of those little issues, there's plenty to like about this car. And like I said, pricing starts at around $40,770, but around 52 grand if you guys want the hybrid trim. Now, of course, the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter sit at the very top of the totem pole, which is interesting because they are the most off-road capable versions of the 4Runner. And honestly, I think it has more off-road capability than a Land Cruiser because Toyota doesn't offer the Land Cruiser in those TRD trims. You're gonna pay around 67 grand to basically get the TRD Pro. That's before you add the $1,400 destination charge, and my test car has around $4,700 worth of dealer accessories, which brings the total price to $73,500. I know, 73 grand for a 4Runner just sounds absolutely ridiculous, outrageous on paper. However, there's a big however here. You have to consider the fact that the competitive set is also around the same price. Now, you could get into a Bronco for around $38,000, a Wrangler for around $40,000 as well. However, if you start adding in the options for the Bronco and the Wrangler to essentially make it equipped similarly to this 4Runner, the Jeep and the Ford are going to cost you between $70,000 to $75,000 as well. Now, delete the accessories on this vehicle and you can get this car for around $68,000, $69,000, which I think is actually quite reasonable. Yes, it's a lot more expensive than the last TRD Pro that I tested, but what you're getting here is a lot of car for the money as well. You're getting a lot of technology, a lot of capability, a lot more refinement, a lot more power, better efficiency as well. At least I'm hoping so once the vehicle is broken in. And I think this is still a much easier vehicle to live with versus a Bronco and a Wrangler. I mean, yes, you can't take the roof off or take the doors off, but you still have that roll down rear window. You still have a sunroof, and it still kind of gives you that open air feeling a little bit, but at the same time, it's just an easier vehicle to live with on highway trips, around town driving. So that's, again, what makes the 4Runner really appealing. Should you buy this over a Land Cruiser? For me personally, I would, just because I really love the TRD Pro trim level and what it gives you. However, if you're looking at a limited or a platinum 4Runner, at that point, the price difference between it and the Land Cruiser is around $5,000, and I think it's just going to come down to your personal taste and preferences, because for me personally, I love the 4Runner. I love the way it looks. I love the way it drives, even though it has some of its issues, but it also is just the kind of vehicle that appeals to me personally as an individual. So it's kind of great how Toyota offers two different options. I'll be curious to see which buyers tend to gravitate more. I suspect 4Runner will still be the sales leader, but only time will tell as we get closer and closer to having both vehicles essentially on sale at the same time, which is happening now, but we haven't had that for a full year yet. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Toyota 4Runner in the TRD Pro trim level. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.